Jacob Arland had once believed that accepting a teaching contract on another planet would at least be predictable. Strange, interesting, but predictable. Standing in the center of the Elinden Royal Palace, surrounded by hovering silver lights and walls that softly pulsed with living crystal technology, he was beginning to suspect he had made a serious miscalculation. The palace looked less like a building and more like a piece of art someone had accidentally turned into architecture. Curved towers stretched toward a pale violet sky visible through enormous open arches. Transparent platforms floated gently between levels, sliding quietly whenever someone stepped on them. Even the floor beneath Jacob's shoes shimmered faintly, as if the stone was quietly thinking about something important. Jacob adjusted the strap of his bag and muttered under his breath, "Okay, alien palace. Totally normal. Nothing weird yet." A nearby royal guard gave a polite but confused nod. The guard looked human at first glance, except for long, elegant ears rising through his dark hair like sculpted points that a tall advisor in flowing white robes approached. "Teacher Jacob Arlen," he said. "That's me," Jacob replied, trying to hide his nerves. The princess had expressed interest in learning about human culture. Jacob nodded slowly. "Right, Earth culture. I can handle that. Movies, food, awkward holidays." The advisor blinked once. They walked together through corridors where glowing plants grew along the walls in elegant spirals. Jacob noticed small, floating drones trimming the plants with precise beams of light. "Those are gardeners. Maintenance constructs," the advisor replied. Finally, they reached a chamber flooded with sunlight through a crystal ceiling. At the far end stood a woman so commanding that Jacob immediately knew she was Queen Talia. She looked strikingly human except for the long ears sweeping through her dark hair. Her silver armor-like dress shimmered with subtle alien technology that shifted patterns like flowing light. Two silent guards stood several steps behind her. Jacob swallowed nervously, realizing he was holding a backpack full of children's books and a tablet of cartoons. "Your Majesty," he said, barely hiding his apprehension. Queen Talia studied him carefully. "You are the teacher from Earth." "Correct," Jacob said. "And before we begin, I should warn you that my teaching style sometimes involves bad jokes." The queen raised one eyebrow. "Bad jokes?" "Very bad," Jacob admitted. Suddenly, a small voice echoed across the chamber. "Is he the human?" Jacob turned to see Princess Senna, standing halfway across the room, staring at him with intense curiosity. She looked about 6 years old with bright silver blue eyes and long ears that twitched slightly. Her dark hair was tied into 2 loose braids, and she held a small floating toy shaped like a spinning starship. Jacob smiled and crouched slightly so he wouldn't tower over her. "Hello, Princess Senna," he said. She circled him slowly, examining him. "You look normal." Jacob nodded. "That's disappointing. Humans are very unremarkable creatures most of the time." She pointed at his ears. "They're short. Yes, we traded long ears for the ability to misplace our keys every day." The princess burst into laughter. Queen Talia looked mildly surprised. Senna then started firing questions rapidly. "Do humans really eat circular bread with melted cheese?" "Pizza," Jacob replied. "Yes, one of humanity's greatest achievements. And some humans even let animals sleep inside their homes." The princess gasped. "Why would you allow that?" "Because they're cute and we're weak," Jacob said. Another laugh escaped her. Jacob whispered conspiratorially. "Also, humans sometimes trip over absolutely nothing while walking." "That makes no sense." The princess laughed so hard that her floating toy bobbed wildly around her head. Queen Talia observed silently, sensing a rare spark of joy in her daughter. Eventually, Princess Senna wiped her eyes and looked at Jacob with sudden seriousness. She studied him for several long seconds, then turned toward her mother and declared, "I choose him." Jacob blinked. "Choose me for what?" Senna pointed proudly. "For my father." The chamber fell silent. One guard nearly dropped his spear. The royal advisor inhaled sharply. Even a hovering maintenance drone froze midair. Jacob looked from the princess to the queen, then to the advisor, and back again. Did I miss something important? He asked. Queen Talia closed her eyes. On Alindra, the words Senna just spoke were law for several seconds after her declaration. No one moved. Jacob raised a finger cautiously. I just want to clarify. When you say you choose me as your father, is this like a symbolic thing? Like when kids on Earth say they want a dinosaur as a pet? The advisor choked. Queen Talia opened her eyes, revealing something rare, pure disbelief. Princess Senna, the queen said carefully, you understand what you have declared. Yes, Senna said happily. The advisor stepped forward. Perhaps the princess is joking. I'm not joking, Senna replied immediately. He tells good stories. Jacob scratched the side of his head. I appreciate the endorsement. The advisor looked deeply uncomfortable. The declaration had already been recorded by the palace intelligence system. Jacob turned toward the ceiling. Of course, the room had recording software. Queen Talia straightened. Teacher Jacob, this situation is unexpected, she said. That is a very polite way of saying catastrophic, Jacob muttered. Senna tugged gently on his sleeve. You would be good at it. Jacob looked down at her. Based on what evidence? You explained pizza, she said. That is unfortunately one of my strongest qualifications. The advisor produced a holographic tablet displaying a glowing legal document. According to the emotional stability doctrine, if the royal heir forms a declared parental attachment after the loss of one parent, the crown must ensure that emotional bond becomes permanent. Jacob raised a hand. Hypothetically, what if the teacher is bad at being a father? Senna immediately protested. You're not bad. I once killed a house plant by forgetting it existed. That is irrelevant, she replied firmly. Queen Talia finally looked directly at him. This law has not been invoked in centuries, she muttered. Jacob blinked. Well, I feel like I just accepted a tutoring job and accidentally signed up to be an interstellar stepfather. Princess Senna nodded happily. I told you he was smart. Jacob slowly realized that his life had just changed forever. Teaching Earth culture was no longer the biggest challenge he would face on Alindra.